Good morning, Stephen Priest here with Class1ModelWorks.com. Welcome. We are in Milwaukee at Trainfest, which has turned out to be a fantastic show. For those of you that haven't been able to make it, we're going to talk about Class1ModelWorks.com, which is our new company, and we're producing HO scale freight cars and locomotives. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what we're producing, and we'll start with the GSC flat car. That work? All right. Are we on still?
Yep.
Okay, well, we're still on. I got you. So the GSC flat car was an interesting prototype car. GSC General Steel Castings was a company that actually cast huge castings, and the bodies of these cars were a one-piece casting from the factory. The interesting thing about it is they were delivered as kits to the railroads. So like the CE&I would get a kit, the Santa Fe would get a kit, and most railroads had one or two of these cars. It was very common. There were a few railroads that had large fleets of them, but not many. So the interesting thing about the car is that most railroads had small fleets of them that they had built themselves in their own shops with kits. So just about every railroad had them, but not very many of them. So it's one of those kind of unique niche cars. So because there were so many railroads, there were a lot of variations, and we're doing quite a few of those variations. If you'll notice, the top of this car has got an open deck. That's one of the variations. Originally, most railroads had them delivered with oak decks or wood decks, which you'll see on this version of the car. And as time went by, and the oak wore out or was hammered on or nailed into and basically decayed, a lot of railroads went back and just plated these over, either plated them over solid, or they would plate them over with grill work like this. So that's one of the things. Another thing that is interesting is you'll notice right here on the car there's lift lugs or lift points where they jack the cars up. Different railroads specified different locations for those jacking pads, or as in this car, there isn't a jacking pad at all. So that's another variation. So as we produce these cars, we're going to produce a lot of the common variations for the cars that made them unique, but also made them prototypically correct for each railroad. So awesome car. They've got working roller bearings. On the second and third runs, we're going to add different types of trucks, such as the Buckeyes, or some of the friction or solid bearing versions as well. So going to be really, really cool stuff. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is our Jeep 40. And we've just started this project. It's going to be a really neat project. We have most of the design work done for it. We're going to be not only doing railroad-specific detail, but also unit-specific detail. So the Milwaukee Road 2037 will be detailed as the prototype 2037 was. And so that's one of the really cool things about it. And part of that is having a lot of available parts. We're doing things such as the correct step wells. There's actually several different heights and several different iterations of the step wells. And we're also going to be doing a lot of details that have never been produced by any model before, period. So that's kind of our plans for that. And that's probably going to be done year and a half from now. So it's down the road a bit, but we've announced it and had a lot of interest in it. So that's a really cool project as well. So the next product we'd like to talk about is our Thrall-built TWF-10 well car. This is a very unique prototype. There were 75 of them built in 1991, and they lasted, well, they're currently running, so they're still lasting. There's about 15 of them still in service as of 2023. So, but the unique thing about this car, we're going to talk about the prototype first, then we'll talk about the model. So the prototype cars were built to be a very high capacity car, higher than most stat cars. One of the challenges with most stat cars is they're articulated, which means they share a truck, which means they're sharing a load from both cars. In other words, both cars sit on one truck. So they have a limit to how much they can carry. So Trailer Train went out and took bids for single well cars that had higher capacity. And this is one of those, the TWF-10. One of the interesting things about the car is it has a European designed, one of the things about the cars, it has a European designed wagon union truck, which is very interesting because it doesn't have springs on the truck. The truck itself is actually a solid casting, and the springs sit above it in the form of leaf springs, just like a pickup truck would have in the rear end. So because they had the leaf springs that transfer not through the bolster, but through the leaf springs, the weight to the car bodies had to have filled in ends for strength. So if you look here in the drawing, this whole area here that's filled in is actually a support mechanism for the leaf springs that run up and down inside of here above the truck. So this truck has never before been produced in model form by any manufacturer in any scale. So I used to switch these cars in and out of the Santa Fe Intermodal facility in Kansas City, and I noticed the weird trucks on them and later did research on them and found out, hey, this is a very unique trailer train car, but they were very common. So, because we saw them almost daily on the Santa Fe Intermodal train. So we're like, when it became time to choose an intermodal car, I'm like, let's do the TWF10. So there's a couple other interesting things I want to point out to you on the car. First of all, we have done a ton of detail work on the ends and the brake systems. And then the other thing we've done is, because it's a metal car, if you look on the bottom of it, there's these little fillets in here. You see these little kind of areas where you can see the metal car and then a very thin piece of metal, which is the welding fillets. There's actually a brass casting or a brass etching that sits down in the car. So you end up with the really bulky parts of the car, but you also end up with these really incredible detailed fillets in there that make the car absolutely just superbly detailed. So it's a fantastic car. Nothing like it has ever been produced before. We're offering it in 3 different eras: as delivered, kind of an intermediate, and then a late. And the late cars will have the new TTX logo, but you'll also notice it's been added, so it's an additive paint. So they basically swatched the car, which means they came back and painted a yellow swatch and then put the TTX logo in it. So it's correct for basically all 3 eras. All 3 of these cars would have or could have run together at some time. It's not like it was like this and then it was like this and then it was like this. They all existed simultaneously, but there's 3 very distinct versions of the car. So that's basically it. And the other thing I want to put out here is that these are available through All American Trains, which is a fantastic dealer. Reinhardt's been a friend of mine for probably 30 years now, and great guy, and they'll be available through him, as will all of our product.
Hey fellow modelers, this is Mike with Class1Modelworks.com, and today we're going to be talking about our brand new 48-foot exterior post containers that we're going to be bringing out. These things are really gorgeous. We've got 2 different models. We've got the Monon containers here, these 2, and the Hyundai. And you're saying to yourself, they kind of look the same, but they're not. There's 2 different treatments on this, and the easy way to tell the difference on these is kind of look at the head end of the 2 containers. The Monons have a full top sheet that comes out over the end frame, little nips at the corners, and a shorter frame on these. So on the Hyundai, you have a full height frame and a drainage channel behind there. So that's a spotting difference for these 2 different styles of containers. And one other way you can tell these things apart is on the back closing rods. The Hyundais have an extra retainer ring at the top. So you can see on here all the detail that we have done on these. We have all the hooks and latches on the upper end and the lower end of the door locking bars. These are very finely made, and they're just an absolute thing of beauty. Our rivet detail on these is exquisite. It is very much scale, and we've gone through and we've painted all of the exterior posts on these. Now, what's thing that's really interesting that a lot of other companies don't do, we have our aluminum color on the exterior posts like they would be on the prototype, but the upper and lower channels above those were galvanized steel. So we have actually painted these in a galvanized color, and when you look really closely at them, you can tell the difference in that color, and that really makes a big plus to the appearance of these containers as they are on your layout. The other thing that we've done with the containers is we've had these painted in a base dirty white color. So we've already got you kind of down the road on doing some weathering on these. You don't have to worry about trying to dull down a really bright white container. So these are really nice, and the exquisite detail on the lettering on these is everything on here is actually readable. That's how fine the printing is on these. They're a thing of beauty. And these are out there. These are retailing for $15.99 US. for singles and $29.99 US for a 2-pack of these things. And they are going fast. We've actually sold about 88% of our first run of these. So if you're thinking about getting some of these containers, make sure you get on class1modelworks.com and order your containers as soon as you can. Get them on pre-order because they're not going to be around much longer.